Welcome everyone, this is Judge Schlackman, and in this video I'll be speaking about the subject of what's often referred to as highly sensitive persons or highly sensitive people. And this could cover a wide spectrum of symptoms or traits, things that appear when you are kind of sensitive to your surroundings, especially to emotional stimuli, so to your social environment. When we experience being kind of emotionally overwhelmed or overwhelmed by the energies in our surroundings, there are different ways we might react to that or cope with it. I like to think of our experience here on Earth as an opportunity for mastering our emotions. So if we think about energy, emotions are a form of energy in motion, and they kind of amplify the energy of thoughts and beliefs. So you could think of the thoughts and beliefs as a different octave or spectrum of energy, and then resonant with that form of energy is the emotional level, where certain types of thoughts will trigger certain types of emotions. So that expands on the energy, it carries it further toward the physical plane, toward this 3D layer of density, you could say. So emotions are very powerful in terms of their creative capacity and how they can drive or motivate us to accomplish things or manifest things through action in the physical plane. However, if we're not very well developed, if we're not that experienced in mastering our emotions, they can kind of wreak havoc in our lives. They could lead us to create things in a very impulsive way, in a way that could appear destructive or dysfunctional. So over time, as we go through many experiences in life, we can develop greater skills and abilities to manage the energy of our emotions, to master our feelings more effectively, and therefore to be able to create things in life more consciously and more intentionally rather than reactively. So coming back to the subject of highly sensitive persons, there are some ways that people may tend to respond to their feelings or emotions, ways they'll cope with it to avoid feeling the unpleasant experience or sensation of being overwhelmed. So one example of this is addictions. It's actually quite common for people to use different substances that affect them on a chemical level in order to somehow kind of subdue or avoid or escape their feelings. So you could numb your feelings with a drug or by overeating, things like that. That's affecting your body chemistry in a way that helps you in some manner mitigate or escape from whatever feeling or emotion you might have been experiencing. Of course, that effect is generally short-term, so once it wears off, those emotional energies are still present, and at some point you'll have to face them or deal with them again. Another way that a highly sensitive person, so to speak, might react or respond to those feelings or emotions is to sort of disconnect from their environment to avoid encountering the stimuli that trigger those emotions. And this is where we often see people who are labeled on the autistic spectrum. So they're very sensitive to different energies to other people's feelings. They may be easily overwhelmed by emotional stimuli and social stimuli, so they kind of retreat and reduce or cut off communication to some extent. They might avoid eye contact. They might become kind of fixated in their own inner world, so their own particular preoccupations or obsessions and so on. So they may develop a lot on the mental level. They may be highly skilled in certain areas but have difficulty making emotional connections since that's overwhelming to them. They feel easily stressed or pressured by having to deal with other people, to deal with feelings. They're hypersensitive to criticism or bullying or things like that. So they've developed their particular system or mechanism to cope, to avoid that type of stress. Another example of how people might attempt to cope with feeling emotionally distressed or overwhelmed is actually the opposite of what you would think of as being sensitive. It's becoming insensitive. So there are people who kind of flip to the opposite extreme or polarity, and they may appear to act like a narcissist or a bully. They disconnect from feelings and empathy. They become overly detached from emotions, and they can appear to go back and forth sometimes between extremes. So a person who's very sensitive, who seems very emotional at some times, could switch that off and move to the opposite pole and act as though they're indifferent to feelings or emotions, both of their own and others. And they could act actually kind of harsh, kind of abusive when they're in that mode. So that is actually another reaction a person might develop when they are easily overwhelmed by their feelings and emotions. They can disconnect from them in that manner. So there isn't just a one-size-fits-all picture or image of how a highly sensitive person might appear, of how they might interact with the world. For our personal growth and development, eventually we do need to develop the ability to manage and master our feelings or emotions. So in the long run, you don't want to be stuck in one of those extreme types of coping behaviors. You would like to mature. You would like the ability to be present with your feelings, so you can then kind of slow down and pause and process them and look at what are the underlying beliefs, the underlying thought processes that are fueling those emotions. Are your thoughts and beliefs in harmony with deeper truth or a better understanding of life? Are you appreciating, are you accepting and loving yourself and others? The more in tune we are with our spiritual source, with those deeper truths, the less vulnerable we are to being overwhelmed or triggered by social stimuli in our human environment. So this is a challenge that we all face, something that we're all mastering as we go through many incarnations. We're understanding these feelings and emotions, understanding our beliefs, and we're learning to better harness those energies in a way that's constructive, that fuels the dreams that we desire to manifest, rather than just recreating things that we don't like, reactively or reflexively playing out old patterns or dramas that have been distressing us. So whether you consider yourself a highly sensitive person or not, or whether you're interacting with people who may appear to show those characteristics or not, this is an interesting topic to explore. We may all have some aspects of those traits within ourselves, and we'll see them at times in other people. So it's helpful to kind of step back and understand what's going on so that we can have greater compassion for ourselves and others for these emotional challenges, and we can more consciously develop skills for processing emotions, for addressing whatever we're encountering in our life and becoming more balanced, more strong in our boundaries, perhaps more stable in our identity or our sense of self. For those that are interested in personal growth and spirituality and holistic health and wellness, I invite you to visit my website, phinsights.com. That's phinsights.com. For now, I would like to wish everyone a wonderful day. Namaste.